Now, to our main discussion for tonight. In the run-up to the August 2022 elections, President William Ruto gave a number of promises under his bottom-up economic plan. He unveiled a 5-point manifesto dubbed the plan, which he said will address Kenya's economic challenges. Now, as soon as he got into office, President William Ruto directed the National Treasury to cut the 2022-2023 budget by 300 billion shillings, which he believes will help the government save on recurrent expenditure. Tax reforms have so far formed a larger part of Ruto's economic policies as he pushes for the expansion of the tax base. Now, Ruto's government has been keen on increasing revenue collection and cutting budget spending as a way of taming the appetite for loans. This forms the basis of our discussion tonight. Do you think Kenyans are paying more taxes in 2023? Talk to us at HopeTV_KE and at Kennedy Kimani_ on Twitter. The hashtag to use is HopeTV Newswatch. Now in studio, I'm not alone. I'm joined by Eric Mukono, who is an economist and also a functional consultant at Great Tricks Africa. Karibu sana to the studio.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, before we get to a discussion, let me our director, Mr. Davis, to play this clip of William Ruto today.
Barabara zilikwama kidogo kwa sababu pesa karibu mwaka moja na nusu hivi barabara hazijaendelea. Wakati tulifika tukasema hatutaki kuendelea na msururu wa madeni. Tunataka kusimamisha mambo ya madeni. Tunataka kupanga uchumi wetu tofauti. Na ndio mmeona imechukua muda kidogo tukipanga kwa sababu hatutaki kuweka uhuru wetu hatarini kwa kukopa madeni tukawa ni watumwa wa wale wametukopesha. Tunataka tupange vizuri, tuwe na rasilimali yetu, tukusanye kila ushuru ambayo sheria inatukubalia. Na mimi nataka niwashukuru wa Kenya. Pale tulikuwa tunapata 70%, saa hii imekaribia 90%. Na hata ushuru wa mwezi huu umepita ile ilikuwa imepangiwa, because Kenyans have decided to pay taxes because it is the surest way of financing our development and our progress. Na mimi nataka niwashukuru wa Kenya wote. Ile mimi nataka niwahakikishie ni kwamba hakuna mtu atakwepa kulipa ushuru kwa sababu ni rafiki wa fulani ama ni ndugu wa fulani ama anajulikana na fulani. Kila mtu atalipia ushuru wa taifa letu la Kenya ndio tuweze kusomesha watoto wetu, kujenga mabarabara, kuweka maji, kuweka stima, kuweka matibabu sawa sawa, ndio tuweze kwenda mbele kama watu wa taifa la Kenya pamoja.
Now, those are the sentiments of President William Ruto. And in every function this year and actually last year, since he got into office, he's been emphasizing on the need of Kenyans to pay taxes. And that's the big question for today. Do you think Kenyans have been overtaxed in this year? And Eric, let me engage you in this conversation. And let's begin from that point. Do you think Kenyans have been overtaxed?
Well, thank you, Kennedy, for having me here. Well, I do not think in any way Kenyans are getting overtaxed. What President Ruto's administration has done since they got to office is setting in measures to make sure they have curbed tax evasion. So what you're seeing now is just, actually things may get even more worse in the coming days, as the CS for Treasury has said weeks ago. So I don't think that Kenyans are paying more taxes, only that President Ruto has made sure that the Treasury and the KRA have put in measures to curb tax evasion.
Well, let's look at the comparison between the Jubilee government, the Uhuru Kenyatta's government, and the Kenya Kwanza government. In the Uhuru government, we saw the government taking the route of getting more loans, which made our country get into debts. But we see William Ruto coming in the government and using a different formula, is now asking each and every Kenyan to pay their taxes so as to cut the appetite for loans and reduce the debt burden in our country. Which route do you think, according to you as an economist, is the right way to go as a country? Do we continue with the Uhuru Kenyatta way of getting more loans, or do we pay taxes so as to evade and cut the appetite for loans, as the president says?
Well, for some reason, during the last term of President Kenyatta, and the very last days of President Kenyatta, we had so many complaints of every time he goes out of the country, he has to come back with something. Sometime I saw some joke that he has gone to Jamaica and he had to play some tricks to just talk Jamaican so that he gets some money. But Ruto has come in, and one of the things that he made very clear during the address to Parliament and Senate, the joint sitting between Parliament and the Parliament and the Senate, was that we are not going to borrow as a country. We are not going to borrow to fund public recurrent expenditure, because that is not a route that, as an economy, and as an economy that wants to grow, that we should take. And so we have been borrowing to do projects, whereas I believe, and is Ruto's opinion, that we can finance our own projects and development projects. Recently, he stopped the Mai Mahiu Road, that was Mau Summit Road. Yeah, sorry, Mau Summit Road. That was to eat into a lot of money, which is borrowed money. Research right now shows that for every 100 shillings that Kenyans pay, that the KRA get on revenue, for every 100, 60 shillings go to repayment of our borrowings and our loans.
That's 60%.
That's 60%, a very huge figure, which I personally don't believe that's a way we should go as a nation. And so one of the things he has been emphasizing on is that, and I'm sure where Ruto is right now, I want to just bet that he has the KRA's Director General's Commissioner Githimboro's phone number on speed dial, so that he keeps reminding him every day that we have given you a target as KRA that you need to collect by the end of this financial year. We need you to collect 3.3 trillion, And you see, this is double the amount that KRA corrects, currently. And so they are on pressure, And so going forward, we may get it a bit rough, but it is only for a season,
Because I remember the Treasury CS.
Yes.
In an event last week, he told Kenyans to brace themselves for tougher economic times ahead.
Yes.
And you've seen the Kenyan shilling depreciate to 124.
Yes.
Against the US dollar.
Yes.
I mean, let's put this in a way the common mwananchi can understand. During the pre-election, we saw President William Ruto, the then deputy, running on the tag Hustler Nation. That this government is going to be created by the hustlers, and that they are going to reduce the cost of unga, the basic commodities of life.
Sure.
But months after Ruto was sworn into office, I mean, we've not seen greater change, from the previous regime. The taxes are going high, fuel prices are increasing. I mean, what's the future like? Well,
one thing I love the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, for some reason. He's the only true Kenyan in this nation who, he said for him in this administration, it's about talking the truth. And you see, when he came in, one of the things he said is that kazi yangu ni kuongea ukweli na sisi tutaambia Wakenya ukweli. And one of the things he said that, when during the last term of President Kenyatta in the very last days, as is, we really do not know whether this was the truth, but Ruto was not really part of this government. And so they didn't really know about the financial situation. And Gachagua told us that whatever they came and found in there, they didn't think that the situation was that bad, you know. And to some extent, I kind of believe them, you know. And what these guys were doing in the previous regime, you cannot subsidize. You cannot subsidize output. You know, you cannot subsidize unga, because you also saw it was not something that lasted. I looked for that 100 shillings unga. I never found it. I'm sure, I don't know whether you eat unga or you eat ugali, but
I'm a normal Kenyan too.
Okay.
It's my favorite meal.
Okay. But Ruto comes in with another narrative of we want to subsidize inputs, we want to subsidize production, you know, we want to subsidize the cost of fertilizer, you know, because that in the long run will make the cost of inputs, the cost of unga come down, you know. And for President Kenyatta, this was only a campaign strategy that we bring this down and then, you know, you're going to give us votes because, you know, we have brought the price of commodities down, which really didn't work. And just to your question, why I brought in Gachagua is because the situation may not really change. You know, the price of commodities, this will take building an economy may take quite some time.
So actually, let's say the narrative, hustle the nation, and in 100 days, it was just political rhetoric.
That was pure politics.
That
was pure politics.
Imagine, after 100 days, I remember William Ruto saying that, you know, some things are hard to deal with. So give us another in 1 year's time.
True.
So after 1 year elapses, and the situation is not the same, you know.
I still can promise you, we may not see much even after a year. This may take close to 3 years, you know, before we stabilize back our economy, before we get our shilling back, the strength of our shilling against the dollar quite strong. It may take quite some time, you know. Recently, they brought in the conversation of, and you asked about tax, you know. And I told you about Ruto is trying to close in the gaps to tax evasion. They brought in the narrative just last week, the narrative of they want to close they want to get into mobile money transactions.
Mobile money transactions.
Which is quite interesting because if we really want development as a country, you know, every time when we have politics, we have people crying that we want roads, we want water, we want electricity, we want infrastructure. And you see, for the government to fund all this infrastructure, you and I must pay taxes, you know? And we must make sure that we tap into every avenue of revenue as a nation. Every avenue as a nation. And so, part of the reason why the government wants to integrate the systems of the KRA to those of M-Pesa, to those of Kenya Power, and to those of landlords, is so that they are able to track, you know, your transactions. Because you find guys here every other day they are in Mombasa, every weekend, you know, transacting.
Soft life.
Yes, soft life. It's a pure soft life. But you see, when it comes to filing taxes, they are filing nil returns. You know?
Allow me to interject you on that.
Yes.
And it's an issue that has made many Kenyans talk on social media. Maybe to bring it to the light. And KRA said to, you know, track mobile money transactions in tax cheats part. And KRA will be tracking the 16% value-added tax on sales, as well as the 20% excise duty charged on transactions. And customers will also pay a 20% excise duty on airtime. For the common mwananchi, because, you know, many have been saying, you know, we are going to be taxed, our airtime, you know, our everything. Kindly explain to the common mwananchi, what does this mean for them?
Well, this is only a measure. Really, they are not coming into your transactions to get money from you, you know. Part of what they are doing is to just make sure that when they look at your transactions, and the taxes that you pay are similar, you know, they're matching, you know, that if you're making transactions of over 200,000 shillings per month, when they look at your tax payment, they're able to track that in all these transactions, this person has been paying his taxes. You know, that is all they are trying to do when they try to say, we want to get into your mobile money, to track your mobile money transactions. So really, it's not something that really should worry people as long as you pay your taxes as you have always been paying. So really, it shouldn't be much of a worry unless you are a tax evader.
Yeah.
Ruto is on your neck. Yes,
Now,
he's looking for you.
talking about transactions, and recently we saw the mobile to bank transactions, the levies were brought back. Do you think that many Kenyans will now opt for cash instead of mobile money transactions? Let me give you an example. I've been to this, market in Nairobi. It's famous, and when you go shopping over there, they don't accept M-Pesa.
True.
You have to give cash, or if you are to withdraw, they'll take it to an M-Pesa shop for you to withdraw the cash and pay on cash. Do you think Kenyans will evade these mobile to bank transactions?
True. We were having a conversation in one of my colleagues in the office today called Jean. And yes, she has kind of a business, and I was trying to just drill down to what will happen just in case KRA now wants to even track down what she does. And she told me plainly and boldly that I will not allow my customers to pay me through M-Pesa. I'll have now to, if the government goes that way, we now devise better ways of trying to evade some of these things. And so in the coming days, we'll see more cash transactions. But then, as well, we cannot evade M-Pesa. You know, we may not evade M-Pesa as much and those online and mobile transactions. Yes.
Yeah. We saw the IMF, International Monetary Fund, raise concern on Kenya's debt, which stood at 8.7 trillion as of October last year. Do you think this is one of the reasons as to why President William Ruto is trying as much as possible to stop getting loans from outside, and go the tax way?
Oh yes, oh yes. Our debt is at a very bad situation, Ken, let me tell you. The recommended ratio of our debt to GDP is 50%. You know, we are at 64, should be 64.5% or thereabout, which is a really bad figure. You know, we are up by more than 10%. You know, quite bad. And this was quite a nice move by President Ruto. Recently, they moved the debt ceiling, and what has been happening, including in President Kenyatta's regime, that when we hit the debt ceiling is up to where an economy is allowed to borrow. And so it was moved to 10 trillion, you know, so that it allows the government to continue borrowing, you know. Which is because we cannot rely on debt. Relying on loans and some of these things are not sustainable for an economy, as I told you earlier. And that is why President Ruto is constantly urging Kenyans on savings and paying of taxes. You know, I want to give you a story. Let me give you a story of why President Ruto, is quite motivated on tax payment. Recently, last year, I got a job offer with one of an international company. And part of the discussion, of course, as we were trying to negotiate on the salary, they told me, now, Eric, we are going to offer you this much, but then, for us, we do not deal with KRA. So we will pay you, but then you are going to deal with KRA on your own.
On your own. So you have to pay the
So
taxes.
you have to pay your taxes, you know? And we have a number of people who are paid through M-Pesa, and that was one of the means of that is one of the means of tax evasion. And how many companies do you think we have, such companies we have in Kenya, that are evading tax, that are evading pay, and how much money as a country are we losing in terms of in tax evasion, And some of those loopholes are the loopholes that this administration and Ruto, I can bet you that this week is not going to end again without President Ruto talking about tax evasion again. I can tell you as well, next week, he's still also going to talk about taxes. Because that is the route that he has chosen to go. And I believe that is a route that as an economy, we should go. Because we cannot, it is not advisable for a country to run on loans.
Well,
it is
you
not
see,
sustainable.
allow me to do a comparison.
Okay.
In the Jubilee government, we saw the then President, Uhuru Kenyatta, justifying taking loans as a means of development, saying that even the US nation, they take loans, they have lots of loans compared to us. But then when you see the development, Kenyans were complaining, why is the development? Yes, you take a lot of loans, but do we see the development? Now with Ruto making us pay more taxes, do you think you're going to see the development yet? Or is it going to be the same issue, but a different case scenario of taxes instead of loans?
In President Ruto's administration, and especially in the first 5 or 3 or 5 years, we may not see as much development if he truly is going the way of not borrowing. We may not see as much development.
In 3 to 5 years?
Yes, in 3 to 5
So
years.
meaning the whole of his
the whole of his tenure, we may see...
First term, that
yes, yes, yes. We may see very, very, very little developments if he indeed is not going to go the borrowing way. President Kenyatta chose to go the borrowing route. He chose to go the borrowing route. He built the expressway. He built the... he renovated the JKIA and so many things, But interestingly, President Kenyatta is gone and his administration is gone, But we have, as Kenyans, we are going to suffer the consequences of the loans he took. Because as I told you, one of the researches, out of 100 shillings, 60 shillings go to borrowing, to the repayment of loans, And that is why we constantly, we do not see development, but then we are still paying more taxes, Because we have to finish up on these loans. Our port is at risk. When this government came in, the first thing that CS Murkomen, when he came to office, he said, I want to put the deal that was there about the expressway and the port, we want to make it public, And those are some of the things that as Kenyans we are dealing with out of what President Kenyatta's government did in terms of borrowing, But then we may get ourselves in the next 3 years, things may not be as we wish and as we want. Ruto is going to be on our neck. Njuguna Ndongo is going to be on our neck. Githu Mburu is not going to spare us. The KRA Commissioner General, he's not going to spare us. So things may get worse, yes.
So in short, Kenyans need to brace themselves for tough economic times ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. When I read the article, it is one thing when another Kenyan tells you that we brace ourselves for a tough economic times. It is one thing when you tell me that, and it is another thing when Njuguna Ndongo, the CS Treasury, tells you brace yourself for a tough economic time ahead. So when it comes from the CS himself, he knows it is going to be tough indeed.
Wow.
Yes.
What a way to end the conversation. That has been Eric Mukono, an economist and a functional consultant at Great Tricks Africa. Kenyans expect tougher times ahead. Well, that has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for keeping tabs to it.